All right. We are live. What is going on, guys? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Intro.
Woo!
Fire. That intro was hot. Well, my component.
The audio experience is not quite the video experience, but still a pretty good audio experience.
No, I'm telling you, we cut it like we definitely actually got a legit intro now instead of the bootleg one that we were doing.
Brutal.
Ooh.
Gosh.
Yeah. But hey, you know what? We'll look back on these episodes and we'll be like, wow, man, that was pretty embarrassing.
When we were rookies, interviewing Bill Brandt and Ed Marino and Kevin McCurley, our intro sucked. That's what we're going to say.
Oh man, well the guess is what makes this show popping, and then of course having Desiree and Steven on here. But yeah, shout to all the viewers, shout to all the supporters, subscribers. If you're new to the channel, please do us a favor. If you want to support us in any way, subscribe, hit the subscribe button. It takes this much effort to go and click that red button.
Comment, share, notification bell.
Or Carl's going to come out of the woodworks and he's going to start ranting.
I don't have a YouTube channel.
Oh God, it's too early.
I'm an educator at a zoological institution.
Conservation Carl, you need to just hold
and
back.
Snap out of it.
All right, Carl, this is not your episode, okay?
Guys, just want to say it's been amazing so far as the guests we're bringing on. I think it's going to get even more amazing tonight.
Yes.
Desiree pulled this one. Thank you, Desiree.
You're welcome.
So
Yeah.
I'm tired of Steve. I was getting tired of Steven bringing on the guest, and he was like, "Oh, he's like, I carry the weight belt around there, and but." No, Steven.
Quote. I didn't say that.
No, I
Find the quote.
But yeah, man,
Roll back the tapes.
super excited about tonight, man. What do we know about tonight's guest, Desiree?
Oh, sorry.
Podcast 101.
Podcast 101. If you ship your reptiles, you will appreciate this man. So
You're right. And who doesn't, for the most part, use ship your reptiles? That's kind of that's the first thing that somebody told me whenever I asked, how do I ship my reptiles? It was ship your reptiles. It was like the first thing they told me. And this is back in 2016-ish, 2017 days. Yeah. So, and it extends from, even more than that. I mean, this guy has quite a history with reptiles, and I'm excited to hear about it, man. So no further ado, here's Chad Brown. What is up, Chad?
Hey, guys. Happy Friday to you. Happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday
to you, too.
I mean? Oh, man, I love that vibe, man. How you doing, Chad? How you living on that side?
Man, things are good. Things are good and busy. I heard you guys just talking about ship your reptiles. Turns out, if you force animal people to stay home, they're going to want more animals. So the last 2.5 months have been crazy at Ship Your Reptiles. I'm certainly appreciative of all the business. Did not expect it. Last month, we were up 40% over April of last year. Yep. And this May is trending the same direction. So tremendous volume in the system. People are buying and selling and moving animals. And I'm certainly, I don't have any animals. Well, I've got a Leachianus here at home, but I've got a koi pond in my backyard. And every day when I go out to feed my fish, I think, man, I could probably use a couple more koi in the pond. So I know the feeling.
Yeah. It's it's wild you say that. So that you don't keep no more snakes? There's no snakes you keep at your house or anything like that?
I've got some green tree pythons at the office. I've got there are 4 siblings, 1 male and 3 females, and the parents are a locality mix. So it's Biak, Aru, and Maroki mix. All 4 of them look completely different. So I'm looking forward to seeing what a couple generations of breeding will do with that group. I'm raising up some lychees. And then we have Fernando, Bob Alpagate's very famous beaded lizard. The beaded lizard that is 50 years plus and has to be the largest beaded lizard in captivity. So that's my reptile keeping right now. But as you guys know, I have kept and bred, thousands and thousands of animals. So certainly a lot of background with all that.
Yeah. So why don't you start with that then? How did you get into reptiles?
I was a kid in Southern California, kind of lived in a neighborhood where behind the houses was these, hills. So I was always catching a lot of California king snakes, a lot of scaloper lizards, a lot of different frogs and toads growing up. And my mother, as moms are prone to do, said, no reptiles in my house. So as a kid, I did Mexican red-knee tarantulas. I bred cichlets in my fish tank. I bred finches in the family bird cage. But it wasn't until my freshman year at the University of Colorado that I got my first snake, a boa, that I named Fear because everyone was afraid of her. And in the process of trying to learn more about boas, I went from pet store to pet store in Boulder, Colorado. And that's where I met Cameron Tepedlin of Bushmaster Reptiles.
Wow.
That's how that met. How about that?
Yeah, so that's like one of your earliest reptile people.
Yeah, so that sparked a lifelong friendship at this point. He was in my wedding. I was in his wedding.
Wow.
But beyond that, from a reptile perspective, man, that was it. I had a chance to talk to Cameron. He told me about what he was doing in his house. He was breeding reptiles at his house. Rode my bike with my backpack on it like a college student over to his house.
Excited.
Checked out. He probably had maybe 50 or 60 snakes in his basement, and he was mainly doing colubrids at the time. He was kind of loosely associated with that Alterna group, the group of guys who were breeding a lot of gray bands. And so I got a chance to see all of that, and I was hooked. And shortly after that, he started importing reptiles from all around the world, mainly from Indonesia, but from all around the world. So I got a chance to see that process. That was really the hook that got sank deep in my mouth at that point from a perspective is, man, not only can I enjoy reptiles in California, catch them in my backyard, but this dude is bringing in 6-foot water monitors, and he's bringing in king cobras, and he's bringing in piebald ball pythons, things I had never seen before.
Right,
so,
mind blowing.
To go from my first snake boa and my first snake Fear, that boa, to a year and a half, 2 years later, to hanging out with Cameron and helping him unpack an Indonesian shipment with Papuan pythons and the first Irian giant carpets and venomous stuff and 6-foot water monitors. Oh man, I was in reptile heaven.
Can you kind of give us a time frame when this was all going down? Like
college, right?
What year?
Yeah, so my first year of college, when I got my first snake, that boa, was 1988.
Damn.
Yeah. So were any of you guys born?
I was 3.
I was 85. Me and Desiree 85.
Okay.
Steven's dad was Steven's dad was in middle school.
All right.
We always get Steven's 19. He's a solid stud. He's getting there in age. He's a young OG. He's a young buck of the hobby.
Or something.
Yeah. I don't go back as far as Bill Brandt does, but I go back pretty far. So it was later in 1989 when I met Cameron, and then there's probably the summer of '89 when I went to his house for the first time. So this is late '80s, early '90s when all this is happening.
Yeah.
So how wild did your collection get from being in college, like you were talking about, to when you got into the NFL? Like when you got into the NFL, is that when the floodgates just opened for you, or were you already at that point before you got into the NFL?
Well, when I was a college student, I had a college student budget.
Right.
So I assembled a group of leopard geckos, and I sold those babies to the local pet stores in Boulder, and that allowed me to get a group of California king snakes going. which then the next spring I sold those babies to all the local pet stores in Boulder. And, you guys know that I played football.
Yeah.
Well, we played our bowl games for a couple years in a row in the southern Florida area. So I had a chance to go to some of those, early importers, Pet Farm and places like that, Strictly Reptiles, and go there. And that's when I started collecting some boas and some pythons at that point. But as a college student, I was able to afford some boas, some regular ball pythons. It wasn't until I got in the NFL and I got some money in my pocket that I was able to build a collection that eventually became Pro Exotics Reptiles.
I remember you had a picture. I remember seeing a picture of you on the Jumbotron or whatever, and you had an albino Burmese python. You had an albino, right? Is that a big one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was, I think, or it was in a magazine or something. But I remember I stared at that picture. That was one of the first times I saw an albino Burmese. I think I don't want to tell you how young I was, but I was young, and I was just like, holy hell! And then you're an NFL player, and I thought NFL players were fucking heroes to me. And it was a crazy combination. You didn't see any other NFL players rocking Burmeses or anything like that, like you were. You definitely stood out with that, man.
Well, yeah, very few players, have this same hobby. I've met some guys from different sports and a couple of NFL players, but some NBA guys, some Major League Baseball players, a couple of hockey guys who are into reptiles. But most of the guys, you bring some snakes in the locker room, you would be surprised how a 315-pound man can turn into a little girl. Oh, wow. With just a little baby ball python in my hands. It's just a little 8-inch baby ball python, man. But they freak out.
That's funny.
So when did you start playing football? Were you like a young kid and then just all through school and college?
Yeah, so I grew up in a neighborhood with a bunch of kids, and I was one of the younger kids. So when they were started to play Pop Warner football, youth football, I was too young to play. So, I would play with them when they got home from practice. So I probably started playing football in some organized way when I was 6 years old. Started playing tackle football when I was 9.
Yeah.
Did play throughout high school. Went to the University of Colorado in 1988. Was drafted in the NFL in 1993.
Wow, okay.
And ended up playing 15 seasons in the NFL.
Wow.
My last season was 2007.
That is so iconic, man. 15 years in the NFL. You've probably seen so much stuff. I mean, I've seen the teams you played on. But that just – so let me ask you this, Chad, because I played Pop Warner, as a child, and I just saw people on my team who I knew that were just phenoms. They're amazing. Was that you? Like, were you just that kid that just on every like, because did you start in Pee-wees and junior midgets and all that stuff? Or when did you
Junior midgets.
Like, what was the first league you started? Because you went by, back then they still went by weight, right? It was by youth, it was by age, and it was also by weight group. Is that right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So junior Pee-wee. I was 9 years old.
Wow.
Junior Pee-wee. So I played from 9 until I went to high school. So 5 years until I was went to high school when I was 15. Yeah. So 9 through 14 is when I played youth football. I wasn't some incredible player. I was usually one of the better players on my teams. Yeah. But, to no credit to myself, my parents, birthed a child who ended up being 6'3", and had to carry 250 pounds. I can't take any credit for that. So a lot of my teammates who were better than me, they weren't able to move to the next level as you go up level to level to level as you continue with your career because of size limitations or speed limitations. I was always able to move to the next level due to this body that I can't take any credit for. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I really appreciate it.
But so the work ethic, though, that work ethic helped you though a lot. I mean, you can't just be born with a big body and just go to the NFL. You had to have some sort of mental drive, or you knew you were meant for something great, for sure. I'm assuming, right?
Like I said, I grew up in a neighborhood where I was one of the younger kids. So in order to be able to play, they would not play with me unless, I couldn't be a crybaby. You can't be a little punk, so I had to play older than I was when I was 6. Or when I was 9 and they were 13 or 14, I had to play older. So playing with those older kids certainly toughened me, both physically and mentally, and gave me a bit of a drive because, they wouldn't. First, I had to be able to play, and then to be able to touch the ball, I had to be able to do something with it. So go in the backyard at home and work on my moves and do all that stuff so I could be able to play with those guys. I think that gave me the mental drive that I kind of, reverted back to throughout my career to be able to keep going.
What part of Southern California did you grow up in?
I grew up in Altadena. Not many people know about that unless you are familiar with that skit from Saturday Night Live with Will Ferrell. Pasadena, is right by Altadena. So I always say Pasadena. I went to John Muir High School, which is about a mile from the Rose Bowl. So I grew up in the foothills of Pasadena.
Right. Okay. Now, with your whole, relationship to the reptile community, right? Like for instance, what you do now, Ship Your Reptiles. That's the company you own, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did it become more of a business for you? Like when did it start? When did like keeping reptiles and everything become more of a business mindset? Like when did that start developing and whatnot?
Probably later in my NFL career. Obviously, when I first started building it, I was just a dude with a lot of money in his pocket, buying some very expensive animals. And to be perfectly honest, a lot of our breeding success wasn't there at the time. We were occasional, but we were not consistent. We weren't, I wouldn't consider us professional breeders. Probably the first 10 years of my NFL career. But as I got older, I began to realize, obviously, I can't play this game forever, and I want to turn this reptile thing into a job, a career, and really a legitimate business. Yeah. So I started focusing on that during the off seasons. And then once I retired in 2007 and started going to the office every single day, that's when it was legitimate business. I'm looking at spreadsheets. I'm looking at P&L sheets. I'm looking at balance sheets. I'm extrapolating the rodent cost over animals. I'm really trying to turn this thing into a professional business at that point.
Nice. That's awesome. Did you get any assistance with that? Like, did you have anybody mentoring you or anything like that, making sure that, basically, did you look up to anybody that kind of helped pave the way? Is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think the training from football, lets you know that you can't get anywhere without being coached.
Yeah.
And who you choose to be your coaches will have an incredible influence on who you become.
Right.
So I was lucky enough throughout my football career to have great coaches, starting from Pop Warner throughout the NFL, and then to start in the reptile world and then, be able to ride my bike to Cameron to Pedlin's house. Are you kidding me? So he was always very, entrepreneurial, very business focused, very different business because, he started off as a kind of a small breeder, then became the import-export guy that he still is today. But he introduced me to guys like Eugene Bissett. I got to know Mike Van Ostrom over at Strictly Reptiles. So, if there's a person in the reptile world that was huge, I probably have met them initially through Cameron, but, as time went on, through my own connections and contacts. So, to go to Reptile Industries in Florida and hang out with Kim and Mark Bell and
you got to go there? Ew.
Yeah, and see their 60 acres of reptile amazingness.
No one gets on that property.
Yeah, it takes you have to
really know somebody to get going.
You got to really sign some documents, and they got to do a background check on you. I think it's a blood check when you walk in the door. But yeah, I've been lucky enough to go to places like that and go to the Gourmet Rodent, and so whether it's smaller breeders in California to the big guys in Florida. I consider a lot of these people to be my friends. We've shared animals. I've been to their facilities. We've shared meals. So I wouldn't say there's one specific, reptile hero. I've learned to look at these successful people and try to emulate a piece of what they're doing and apply it to what I'm doing.
Right. And mold it into your own thing, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So at what point in your career did you meet Robin, where you guys kind of started partnering up?
Robin and I both went to the University of Colorado.
Okay.
So before I left for my rookie year, I probably had known Robin about a year and a half. He was managing a record store. Remember those?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Tower Records. There was Music World. There was a few of those. I remember those.
Yeah, so he was managing a record store where you could, buy and trade records. And, I would come in with some albums and CDs and records I wanted to trade. And we got to be good friends, and he hooked me up. And he got some of my first boas that I hatched. And as a guy who worked at a record store, he retrofitted a stereo cabinet, another old school thing, to be his first reptile cage.
Hell yeah.
So, after about a year and a half of being friends, I felt comfortable enough with him to say, "Hey, man, I'm leaving for the NFL, and I'm going to be gone for 7 months, and I probably won't be back at all. And I need somebody to take care of my, at this point, kind of building up my collection. Would you be willing to do that?" So he became my first employee, and we worked together for over 25 years up until recently. And he did a tremendous job with those animals. He didn't have much of an animal background, but just as I did, he kind of, connected with some people and learned on how to do this whole thing.
So you basically took the load off your hands, like the big load, and was able to fulfill your dreams of collecting the animals you wanted to keep and whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah. So he became my employee before we were, even really legitimately a business. And we kind of learned business together through that early reptile experience. And if you think about a reptile business, it's unique. A lot of times people want to, get in the business. So they are in one segment of the business. But as you guys well know, if you're in reptile business, you are in the production business, which means you need to manage the animals, you need to manage the staff. You are in the marketing business. How do you market your animals? How do you sell your animals? And then you have to, do the financial back end of things. So you get kind of informed in so many parts of business by being your own smaller breeder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, your first employee was like Cush. He was a Cushington. He was pretty much ran the show for you.
A lifer, yeah, for sure.
Lifer. I like that. That's what Cush is. Cush is a lifer for sure, huh, Desiree?
I hope so.
He ain't going anywhere.
Jeez.
Nope. All right. I'm just taking a day. All right. So at what point then, I guess Joe's next question, what point did Pro Exotics become a company where you guys started actually becoming legit with it?
Probably year 3 for me in the NFL. So that would have been 96. Obviously, as a player, you have an agent. My agent was an attorney. She was like, "Hey, man, you're spending a lot of money on these reptiles. Let's get some tax benefits and some write-offs from this. Let's legitimize this whole thing." So sat down, and came up with the name for Pro Exotics. Obviously, a play off of being a pro football player. Incorporated the company, all those kind of business steps you had to take, and we made it official. And Robin was no longer just getting written personal checks from me. He was actually, getting checks from a payroll service.
Legit company check.
Company check, yes.
Yeah, that corporate check. That's what I'm talking about. Can't get more legit than that. I'll tell you that much.
Well, then he got a corporate car, so then he was super legit at that point.
Oh, there you go.
Here's a gas card. This is probably before GPSs were put on the car, so who knows? He's probably just fucking getting
going everywhere. Yes.
Oh man, that's awesome. So do you have any affiliation with any rodent business, or no? Is it just to ship your reptiles?
We do some shipping for some smaller rodent folks.
Okay.
Desiree and I have talked about a little bit of helping her out with some of these couple day areas that she's trying to reach. But at this point, no. When we were Pro Exotics Reptiles, we bought from everybody who could supply our needs. Yeah. And towards the end, we ended up renting a separate warehouse to breed our own rodents. Those folks who do that, my hat is off to you. That is a whole
Savage.
different kind of business.
Savagery.
It's tough. It is tough. Retaining staff to do
Oh,
that is
fuck, that's the
extremely
worst part.
difficult.
Man, you hit the spot on Steven right now. His eyes just lit up. He's like,
Yeah. So I empathize and I sympathize. I know how difficult that is. And you guys, would be surprised to probably not be surprised, but how many really big, prominent reptile breeders I have sat down and they've talked about, oh man, I'm going to do rodents, man. I'm sick of buying rodents. I'm going to become a big breeder.
Good luck.
I'm like, okay, talk to me in 6 months.
yeah.
Talk to me in a year, and then talk to me in 18 months when you give it up. And that's usually the lifespan about how it goes. They rent a space, they get some racks, they get all excited, they have some production going, and then a couple employees quit, and then now they're doing the rodents themselves.
Every day.
Ridiculous rodent fleas, and the fleas are biting them, or whatever crazy thing that happens in the rodent space happens to them. The plumbing goes bad, and all the cages flood, or all the cages are dry, and something horrific happens, and they're just discouraged because, man, that's a hard business.
I think the fastest I seen last is like 2 months. I saw somebody who was like trying to tell everybody on Instagram, got some good news coming, and I was real curious because he's a ball python guy, so I was like, oh, I wonder what he's gonna come up with. And then he's like, all right, I'm doing my own rodent business, frozen thought, blah blah blah. I'm not gonna say what the person's name is because he flopped really quick, but anyways, within 2 months, I stopped seeing stories, and I was like, hey, what? I was like, hey man, are you still shipping rodents? He's like, nah, I'm good.
No, I'm good.
I was like, well, there goes that shit.
Yeah, it's a tough biz. It is a tough biz. I would go and check the cages, and I got to yell at the staff. Hey, man, there's 4 females in here, but let's guess what's missing. A male. We're not going to breed anything unless we have a male in the cage.
Yeah, 4 pets. You got 4 pet rats.
Let's at least do the basics at a high level. If we can just do that, we've got a chance. But until we do the basics, we're not going to be successful at all here. So I found the breeding of roaches to be much easier than the actual breeding of rodents, and it took a lot less staffing and headache and hassle to do the roaches. So in the end, I ended up taking rodent space away to do more roaches because I found that just to be easier and a little bit more lucrative. So yeah, tip of the cap to you guys. Obviously the business needs people like you guys to do this. So I am cheering for everybody who's willing to do it because I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're actually my opinion, they're the best in the game. I think, and they're very consistent.
MJ?
Not just because they're the sponsor, but I'm just saying they are really consistent with their stuff, and a lot of reason why people choose to go their route is because how professionally their stuff's packed. So it's just not easy. So on top of dealing with everything you're talking about, they're professionally packed, and no steps are missed. That's when things get really technical and difficult to keep consistent. And fucking Steven always tells me he battles keeping solid employees all the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's hard to progress when you don't have anybody to mentor or fucking grow with. You know what I mean? It's like, because like you said, you always catch yourself doing all the work.
Yeah. So, suddenly I'm going over there on a Sunday I'm supposed to do some family time, and I got to clean, 10 rodent racks myself.
Yeah.
I come home and I got to take a shower, and I'm just like, man, I just don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough biz. Yeah, you guys are doing, good things for the hobby because not everybody's cut out for that.
Thank you.
So when you were in the NFL and whatnot, depending whatever team you played for, did you always keep some sort of animals with you? Like, did you always have like your favorite like snakes like always on your person? No matter what team you're with, or was everything always with? Was it Robin? His name or the
yes, Robin.
Was everything always just with Robin?
For the most part, yes. I can't think maybe more than a year or two where I had actually any animals where I lived when I played. You go to that town, and then once the off season, you go back home.
Oh, okay.
So
Kind of.
yeah, I never really fully set up shop anywhere where I played. I always kept a home base here in Colorado, so the animals were, better cared for here. Otherwise, now I'm trying to find a rodent breeder in Massachusetts when I play for the Patriots, or trying to find one in Pittsburgh. So that's they're better left back at the facility when they get a lot better care.
Mhm.
So you're in Colorado now, right?
We are currently in Colorado, correct?
Nice. How the Rockies, man?
Not a big baseball fan. They haven't been successful for a while. But if you're talking about the mountains, those are actually beautiful.
I'm at
the baseball
fan. I'm a Dodger fan. I could care less about the Rockies. I don't know.
Ah.
But I was thinking, I've actually never gone to visit the Rockies, like Colorado mountains and shit. I've heard nothing but great things and stuff like that. So I'm just curious, you know what I mean? I bet it's what makes you want to stay in Colorado, especially from being from Southern California. So what makes you just want to be in Colorado?
Man, I actually am closing up my time here probably sooner than later. I bought a house in Paradise Valley, Arizona.
Whoa.
It turns out, I am just like my reptiles. I like it hot. Colorado winters are getting to me. So I'm a little sick of shoveling snow and all those kinds of things.
Okay.
Colorado's beautiful. It's a great place. For a place where it does snow and get cold, it's not that bad. Obviously in those East Coast places where I played football, that's crazy cold and that's a lot of snow. It doesn't happen like that out here. Whenever you see Colorado and snow, usually it's up in the mountains, but down here at sea level, it's not so bad. But yeah, Arizona, where I can do some herping in the desert, and I can lay out in my backyard in December and not worry about snow. I just got to worry about if I have enough sunblock on.
Okay, I have to bring up, you played for the Patriots. You played at home games at the Patriots. You probably played in the coldest weather that you could possibly play in. How'd you deal with that? First off, what's that really like? What's that experience like playing in something that cold?
Okay, well, so Southern California guy, the coldest game I probably played in high school was probably mid-40s.
Yeah.
So to come to Colorado, and then we played a few night games here where, it was 0 or even negative temperatures. That's tough. That's tough. Everything hurts.
Everything hurts. Everything.
Like your fingers when you catch the ball.
A face mask. Oh, I can't imagine a face mask. Oh my. I don't even know how it's tough, bro. You must be tough as nails.
Used to be. I've lost some of my tough skin now that I don't have to keep it up anymore. But, I played in a game on a Monday night game where it was probably 10 below. And I had my forearm wrapped around somebody and was making a tackle. And my teammate hit me with his helmet. And my skin was so cold, rather than, bruising, the skin just split open because it was not pliable enough.
Gosh.
But it didn't bleed because, everything instantly froze. So I didn't have to worry about it until halftime. They stitched me up at halftime.
Oh.
That is wild. So it was just open meat, but no blood. No blood.
Right. Because it was frozen.
Oh my God.
That is so gnarly. Wow. And I've played multiple sports. I've had injuries. I cannot imagine something like that happen. What was your okay, so when you saw it happen, you looked down at your forearm and it was just
split open. Yeah.
And you just kept playing or
yeah, I got up, he hit me and it hurt. Yeah. I got up off the ground and I looked and I was like, oh man, well, it's only second down. We still got third down to go. I'll see what happens. It didn't bleed or anything because it froze up so quick. And if it gets cold enough, the plastic inside the helmet, that starts to get really hard and sharp too. Yeah. So you'll have all kind of cuts on your forehead and around your head from the plastic in your helmet freezing and nicking you up.
Yeah, and you'd think they'd make those better quality in those kind of situations.
Well, now it's different, I think. Now it's like the helmets are way more designed, right? I'm assuming.
The helmets are a little bit better, and a lot of them have like a fabric kind of lining, so it's not going to slice you up. And then they've gotten a lot better with the heaters on the sideline. So once you take your helmet off, you can put it on a little cup with air holes in it, that's
cute.
blowing warm air in your helmet. So you've probably seen some guys do that on the sideline. So those heated benches are nice.
Yeah,
And the little thing you
nice.
put your helmet on is nice.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
That's awesome.
Innovation.
It's crazy to hear, like, how you had to deal with playing in conditions like that back in the day. I mean, I would always just be mind blown by that stuff.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
No one's excited about playing in those temperatures. It sucks for everybody.
I grew up in South Dakota, and I played soccer and track, and there was some pretty cold games too.
Yeah, it makes you not want to do anything. Just like but it's like, like you said, you get an NFL check. What are you going to do? You're going to hit the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How many kids you got, Chad? Any kids?
I got two. I've got a daughter. She's 23. My son is 20.
Nice.
Over the years, let me think. My daughter has kept ball pythons, leopard geckos, uramastics. My son never kept anything in his room, but he always loved coming to the facility. And in the end, I think he's probably more of a fish guy. But yeah, they certainly, when they were young, it was a little frightening because, little 5 and 6 year olds run around pulling drawers open, and they're 5 or 6, so it's at their face level. It's like, whoa, that's a blood python. Don't do that.
Yeah. That's an easy target right there.
Yeah.
Man, so your kids always been fan of the snakes and the reptiles? Yes.
Yeah. My wife's term is they have an appreciation from afar.
They're like, hey, they watch you from wherever they're at, but they don't come too close.
They enjoy the beauty of them. They enjoy the life stories that I tell about them and how they live and all that. But yeah, they're not in there cleaning poop every day. So
touch back on the chondros that you keep in the office, right? You said they're all siblings. Is that right? 4 of them?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. What's your plan with those? So they raise up, you get them to adults. Do you have any, I can't remember if you said you plan on breeding them or if you just want to see what they look like, or what are your plan with chondros?
I'm going to breed them. And in fact, I've gotten some copulations with 2 of the females this year.
Nice.
A buddy of mine who I do a lot of sports radio with, he wanted to name the group. So the male is Jay-Z and the 3 females are Destiny's Child. So we got Beyonce, Kelly, and Michelle. And of course, Beyonce is the prettiest one. She's showing the most BIOC influence. So she's probably 75% yellow. I don't think she's going to go full green at all.
Nice.
So like I said, they're a pure locality mix, either directly from Bushmaster's farm over in Indonesia. So Aru, Merauke, and BIOC. So I worked with the Asian rat snakes, the Porphyracia group, which are essentially the same kind of snake, but just from different localities.
Right.
And towards the end of my time when I was breeding those, I started mixing the localities. And the first generation mixes were okay. But once you got to F2s and F3s and F4s, man, they were completely bananas. So I'm looking to do the exact same thing with this setup, with this these 4 chondros. Is that I know right now the adults are kind of funky looking, but once I go with this first generation of breeding them within themselves, I'm really going to start seeing some really awesome, cool stuff.
Do you keep any of those? I can't remember. You don't have any rat snakes, do you, Steven?
I used to keep some cockeye, but right now, no, we don't have any of the Porphyracia complex. Yeah,
cockeye, the whole Porphyracia complex, they were literally one of my favorite animals to work with. I bred every Porphyracia that was available in the States. I bred the heck out of them. For a while, we were the largest producer by far. I mean, I produced thousands of babies a year of that Porphyracia group. And like I said, towards the end, I started doing the crosses, and those crosses were absolutely bonkers. Peaches and reds and yellows and oranges and some completely almost solid black. They were just mind-blowing. But we lost most of those in the fire.
Fire. You had a fire, unfortunately?
Yeah, November of 2011. That's how we really officially made the transition from Pro Exotics Reptiles to really focusing on ship your reptiles.
Oh, no.
Was that fire.
Yeah.
Wow.
We had an electrical fire. The insurance company and the fire investigators and all those folks were never really able to fully determine where and how the fire started. It was definitely electrical. Yeah, we lost thousands and thousands of ball pythons and boas and Bolin's pythons and blood pythons and porphyracea and mandarins and rhino rat snakes. And then
I hate. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you out, Chad, but I hate hearing shit like this because like it happens, and then like it's fucking just terrible. Like you just what's your advice for anybody? Like anything you could give advice wise to prevent something like this? What would you give, Chad? Just because obviously I don't know how this was 2011. You said or 2010. Did they have anything back in the day that was Wi-Fi to your phone? I'm sure they didn't back in that time, right?
It was probably just started coming out. I got a call from the alarm company because there was so much heat inside the building that it blew a window out. So the alarm went off because the window blew out. So it was an older warehouse, and it did not have sprinklers. So I would definitely recommend, if you're going to rent a facility with sprinklers. And then now with all the folks who are doing marijuana in their homes, they have those kind of hang-on fire extinguishers that you can hang on the roof that will, turn on automatically once the room gets to a certain temperature. So even if you don't have sprinklers, you can arm your room with something like that as a safety precaution. Those are only like, $50, $60. A lot of those, online grow house kind of supply shops. So I would recommend that. I would recommend definitely some temperature alarms that go to your phone, but definitely sprinklers if you can do that. And if not, get some of those self-starting sprinklers with the temperature alarms in them. Because that was tragic. It was horrific. And even to this day, if I smell the smell of burnt plastic, it still chokes me up. It still brings back those emotions of standing outside of my facility and the firefighters wouldn't let me in for hours and hours and hours. And just the mental pain and anguish of going, man, each hour that goes by, that's more animals that are dying. And then to walk in once the firefighters let us in, and obviously as reptile keepers, we kept things in racks and tubs. So a lot of the fronts of the tubs melted. So the animals were trying to get out or got out. So you have all these ball pythons halfway in, halfway out of these burnt tubs. And just burnt, hard, smelly awfulness everywhere. A literal reptile nightmare.
That's so fucked.
Yeah, it's making me like sweat right now. Each time I talk about this, it brings back all those weird, awful emotions.
Yeah, man. But you are who you are because of it now. You know what I mean? I mean, you still to this day have a passion and love for reptiles. The fuck? What are you gonna do, man? Like I said, I've heard horror stories like this. As much as you don't want to believe it or think it's not true, it's so true and it happens. And it's like, man, I'm sorry. That's all I could say is I'm really sorry. It sucks.
The lessons of football, and MJ, as you said you played, get knocked down,
get back up.
Get the fuck back up. Yeah. What am I gonna do? I can't do anything to bring these snakes back to life. As much as I want to, as much as I want to jump in a hot tub time machine and fix things, I can't. I just can't. So how do we move forward in this space? And that's when we decided to really focus on Ship Your Reptiles. And I think, as awful as the animal deaths were, to transition into Ship Your Reptiles and to the Reptile Report and into THG Heat, we've really broadened our influence in the hobby. I think we've raised the standards of safe animal shipping, and along the way have saved thousands and thousands of animal lives. We've made it shipping easier and easier for folks to turn their bedroom hobby into a legitimate business. So yeah, it sucks. It hurts. It still stings. I mean, probably you can still hear the emotion in my voice. Yeah. But we decided to move forward and try to make the best of it all.
Yeah, man.
Where did the initial idea for Ship Your Reptiles come from?
Yeah.
There was another company that was doing, kind of the model of third-party reptile shipping, but they were doing it very, very unsuccessfully. So, a lot of times in life, it's not necessarily about your idea. It's about your execution of the idea. So they had a great idea, and now we had this idea years and years before they did. We just had other things in front of us, so we weren't able to get after it. But once we, really made the focus to try to flesh this idea out, we always thought, what's the difference between this guy's ball pythons and my ball pythons? Ball pythons are kind of ball pythons. As long as everyone's taking really good care of them, they're kind of a ball python. So how do we differentiate ourselves? Through customer service, through doing things the right way, through being professional. So we thought if we can take that and apply it to this shipping thing, we'll be successful. And almost 10 years later now, that's exactly where we are. By applying the professionalism of just being great business people to this cool idea, that's what enables to really push forward.
Yeah.
You could say you were the pioneers of this ship your reptiles thing. And because I haven't seen any other box that actually has, because you have the chameleon, right? The like you guys have the ship your reptiles is, don't you have the green, like there's like a green reptile on the side of the box or something like that, or am I tripping?
You're thinking about Reptiles to You, one of my copycat competitors.
Son of a bitch.
Jerk.
I've only heard of ship your reptiles. I've only heard of ship your reptiles. I haven't heard of even Reptiles to You, so maybe I'm tripping. I'm sorry.
So there's a couple different.
Here, I was looking for a picture.
Yeah, there's a couple different competitors in that reptile space, and they're all kind of copycats of what we do.
Right. Everybody copies somebody.
Yeah. Now there's a reason why we don't go with a super reptile branded box, because obviously there's a general reptile phobia. If you're going to walk into a FedEx hub and drop off a box that says reptiles on it, that's going to attract some unwanted attention. FedEx and UPS are really good at what they do. Give them a box, they're going to get it there by 10:30 the next day. They're fantastic at that. But once you start adding complications to that, I don't want to touch that box because it's got reptiles. Or it says, reptiles like it hot. So let me take it out of this spot and go put it in the sun.
Fuck.
Yeah, something dumb. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, or, I was shipping some Galapagos tortoises for a zoo, and they used a box that said perishable. So somebody very well intended at, FedEx said, oh, perishable, let me stick this in the refrigerated truck.
No.
Now, long story short, that person left for the day, forgot about these Galapagos tortoises. Luckily, the zoo packed them really well, so they weren't affected by the cold.
Wow.
We were able to get them out of the refrigerated truck and off to where they needed to go. But again, once you start adding those complications and special instructions to FedEx and what they do, that's when things start to go haywire. So we've made a decision to, brand our boxes with, the correct information, but doesn't say, giant live reptiles in, bright red ink, because
don't go this route is what you're saying. Don't put live cold blood.
What the
What?
Do not do that. Now that person is very well intended, and I appreciate their intentions.
Wow.
But they don't know, as that box is going through the system and all the different hands that have to touch that box as it moves through the system, that can bring about somebody doing some odd things, whether it's kicking it because they don't like reptiles, or heat related, or cold related, or anything else. We want to avoid. Just do what you do, FedEx. Pick it up and drop it off and get it there as quickly as possible. Don't do anything special.
So having just fragile in the box is fine, is what you're saying, right?
So there are some, the Lacey Act has some specific wording in it, how things need to be labeled.
So go ahead.
So the Lacey Act says, you need to say live. We recommend live, harmless reptile. And don't break out your super jumbo Sharpie. Use your ballpoint pen. That's fine. It just needs to say what's, it's live, harmless reptile. List the common name and list the Latin name and the numbers of animals that are in the box. So if something were to happen and the label were completely ripped off the box and FedEx is forced to open this box, they have an idea of what's in there. They know what they're opening up. Now it's not going to be dropped off to animal control because someone's freaked out and they have no idea what it is. It says it right there on the box. So again, we don't want to draw any extra attention to the box, but if that box is forced to be looked into for whatever, we need to have that information on the box. But again, don't make it jumbo and big and go crazy with it.
Yeah.
How often are you finding that they need to force their way into the box? Or, I mean, do they let you know, hey, look, we had to open up this box and check? I mean, you get notified for that stuff, or?
It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. Sometimes Fish and Wildlife in Florida, particularly around, say, the show in Daytona, they will inspect boxes coming in. So they'll be at the air cargo at the airport. They'll be at the FedEx hub, and they'll open up boxes, seeing if there's any, animals that shouldn't be in Florida being shipped in. California will use dogs, and these dogs are really, really good at smelling turtles. They are fantastic at that. So if your box is not labeled properly, and then the dogs smell it as a turtle, that your box can be inspected. So the incidences of FedEx going into your box, that would only be because your label ripped off and they're looking for a invoice with address information in there, or Fish and Wildlife going into your box. All those are very, very rare, but you should pack your box as if it is going to be looked at to make sure you are doing everything to the proper FedEx standards, Ship Your Reptile standards, and that state standards that applies.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the species of tortoises and whatnot. I do know back in the 90s, there was like a lot of illegal imports of those. Do you have like any, did you hear any crazy stories or know anybody or know of somebody who was like involved in kind of any of the like illegal imports or hear anything about that? Because I recently met somebody who's actually doing time right now for some stuff that he did with tortoises back in like 98. He did his time. They let him out, and then they found some more dirt on him about tortoises. So he went back for like another 2 years. But apparently this was really wild and big in the 90s. And I'm just like, out of curiosity, just wondering why it was so big or what it was all about with these tortoises. I wish I knew what the species were. I never asked.
Probably the plowshares and the star tortoises, all those rare species. They were definitely being smuggled around. But I mean, there's even species here in the U.S. Don Hamper went to jail for wood turtles in Ohio.
Wow.
Tom Crutchfield, a friend of mine. He was.
I don't know about him.
Yeah. So there's been a number of, we'll call them colorful characters in the reptile world. Who have made some decisions they probably regret in the end. But I think at this point, there's really no reason to be involved in smuggling anything.
Because that's what's ruining the hobby, period.
Yeah, it sheds a bad light on us all. It's not the positive news that we need. And things that I've heard about recently that have been smuggled or illegally kept. No one needs to keep a Komodo dragon privately. You just don't need to.
We need to, but most people don't need to.
Things like that. But almost every species that we want to get our hands on now, we can. So that the initial smuggling out of the wild has already happened. There's no reason to fly halfway across the world to bring out crested geckos from New Caledonia. There's no reason for it. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense.
Mm. But it just used to be so much easier because there weren't such heavy regulations. And with tortoises and turtles in particular, they can't really move much if they're restrained. So they're really easy to hide into suitcases and whatnot, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And, I definitely have, known some friends who took trips to Australia in the early 90s and, sent back some books they had hollowed out to themselves. And those books had, awesome Australian geckos or pythons or things like that. So a lot of these, founder stock was definitely smuggled in. But again, at this point, there's no real reason to do that stuff because 99.9% of the things we want to get our hands on, they are available and they're available captive bred.
Except for ticks. Man, there's some banging retics right now in Indonesia, bro. It's like it's crazy what they're finding back there, and it's just very depressing because they'll never come over here. We'll never get it.
Indonesia, the permit system is always changing. Some years there's permits for bowlings, some years there's not. Some years there's lots of permits for retic, some years there's not. So I have to imagine at some point those animals will find their way here.
Can anybody kind of brush up the Lacey Act for me? I have an idea and I've heard what the Lacey Act entails, but what's the Lacey Act to this hobby? Like it has nothing to do with imports from Indonesia, I'm assuming, right?
It does with the retics.
He's doing a forest. He's pulling a forest right now. He's researching.
But for him to just briefly touch on the retics, the reason that those imports stopped is due to the Lacey Act.
Got it. Okay.
As far as I know, but
the Lacey Act is a law that basically prohibits the trade in wildlife, fish, and plants that are either banned or have restrictions upon them, or that are collected or harvested illegally. So it's just kind of a blanket wildlife protection law that then has some addendums to it about how animals travel either internationally or domestically here in the U.S.
Do you think we should be
them too? I think.
What? Say that again, Desiree?
I said keeping them too, you can get a violation, Lacey Act violation.
But it all varies.
That's where there's a lot of gray area. There's a few clauses in there that leave lawmakers up to a great breadth of interpretation. Where they can kind of pick out words here and there, and then enforce as they see fit to what they want to do that day.
We should have Cody on because he got hit with that back in Vegas. So
shit,
not something you want to mess with. The Lacey Act.
No.
It's pretty legit.
Yeah, and you can be in violation of the Lacey Act if you move a berm across state lines, and you're not trying to do it illicitly. You're just moving from one state to another, and berms are not supposed to travel across state lines. So some of these laws and regulations are a little bit unrealistic and not really founded in strong science.
And that's why if you ever want to do anything like that, contact your local USARC reps.
Yes, absolutely.
Good plug, Desiree. That was a good plug.
Yes, and if you are buying a label or anything from Ship Your Reptiles, as part of their checkout process, you can do a donation to USARC. And at the end of the year, we match everyone's donation that they've donated through buying through us. We match personally out of our pockets from Ship Your Reptiles to donate to USARC as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes.
Now, let me ask you real quick your input on what the future looks like for the hobby, okay? Because there's a lot of people who are concerned with PETA and other like forces that want to stop people from owning reptiles or keeping them as pets. I mean, do you think we really stand against that someday, where we can't keep reptiles as pets? I mean, do you really think we're going that route if we don't do something quickly about it? Or
I think quickly would be the wrong term. I think we need to think long term and sustainable, because our enemies, they're not going to give up the fight, because it's not a fight for them. It's a mindset. It's an ideology that they're operating under. They don't think anybody should keep pets at all. So, they're going to move to all the more vulnerable hobbies, animal keeping hobbies, because we're not as well funded as, say, the aquatics industry. They stopped the airlines from shipping in birds. That was PETA and those folks. So we always need to be on the lookout, and you need to recognize that we're never going to win the war. It's going to be a battle forever, and it's never going to stop. We are always going to have to fund organizations like USARC. We're always going to have to be able to write letters to our congressmen or to our senators or to our representatives about some of these ridiculous laws that these PETA-type folks try to weasel in towns and states and municipalities around the country. That have nothing to do with sound animal science and have everything to do with an ideology. To think we can do something quickly, I mean, that would imply that we could win and get over and yay, we got victory. That's never going to be the case. It's always going to be a fight, because we're not fighting against, a person or trying to win a war. We're fighting against an ideology that's impossible to defeat.
Yeah.
Like
Well
just
said.
in this last stimulus bill that was just passed through the House, in the 1600 something page, there was a clause added about interstate commerce of injurious species for risk of human pathogen spreading. It's a ridiculous, PETA effort to restrict primarily the reptile trade. That would have also reversed the ruling in the USR case a few years ago that got Burmese and retics off the Lacey Act. So even in something as ridiculous as that, there's you can never be on the lookout enough. It's really amazing if you really look into it in depth and look at the scope of this effort by groups like PETA and the Humane Society. It's insane.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, check out the USARC page. They redid their page recently. It's updated. It's refreshed. There's a lot of great information there. I know you can donate directly there, and USARC is pretty much at every large reptile show. There's usually an auction on Saturday night that you can participate in that helps fund those efforts, and those efforts do matter. I mean, we love our animals, and there are folks who are actively doing everything they can to take away our rights to keep them. And again, it's not based on any sound science or protection of native species or anything like that. It's just based upon an ideology and a non-animal keeping agenda.
Yeah. And if you're in this hobby, man, you should be donating, at least $5 a month to USARC. Like it's not going to break your bank. I mean, I'm telling you right now, it's all going to lead to something that we could stand. That's going to help us stand for what we stand for someday. So I'll put in the link in the description below. I know they have there's a link to where you can become a member and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm redoing my websites, and hopefully I'm going to design a little widget that people can download onto their websites, which would be a donation part of the checkout process. That money can then be donated directly to USARC. So looking to build a little widget to be able to pass that out to reptile folks or rodent folks or whatever, because we have to keep that arm funded. Otherwise, it's not going to be strong enough to defend us.
Go against them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're one of the top tier members.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
Directly taken out of the account every month. So
Yeah.
But I would like to do that on our website too. What you're talking about.
You'd be surprised, and we have our little micro donation feature. Sometimes people donate as little as 25 cents, but at the end of the month,
like round up to the whole dollar amount or whatever, and that goes to them, kind of thing.
Yeah. So at the end of the month, I sign all the checks, and I look, I go, wow, man, there's another $3,000 to USARC. Great month. That's fantastic.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone does their part. I'm telling you, we're gonna be sitting pretty well if we just all get on board with this.
Yeah, it's another one of those things about the mindset of these little subset groups, retic people, ball python people. It's like, no, we're all
in this together.
The same fight.
We all want to keep. We're all trying to keep whatever the fuck we're keeping.
Yeah. any sort of infighting or whatever, it literally just plays into the hands of these animal rights groups, unfortunately. So.
Absolutely.
Hey Chad, so shows like Tinley and stuff like that. Do you ever pop your head in any of those? I would love to meet you at one of those shows someday. I'm just curious.
Yeah. So we set up at Daytona. We set up at Tinley. Daytona is not the destination show that it once was. I think Tinley is probably the biggest show in the industry as far as people traveling in from all across the country. So to have us set up at the show, it's great because people can go around and buy animals and do their thing. And then on Sunday, they can drop their animals off with us and then ship them home. We also do that service for a lot of the vendors who want to just jump on the plane. They bring their tables and their supplies and their displays over to us, and we ship them out for them. So we will be at every Tinley show. If I'm not there, usually my staff is there. We are also at Daytona. I'm going to make a bigger West Coast presence once we're past all this COVID stuff and shows start kicking up again. Me personally and my staff as well. And we also will be vending at a few California shows. We did the Anaheim show in January. Definitely not a destination show, definitely a California show. So we did very little shipping from the show. But at the same time, it's great to meet the people, shake the hands, put a name with a face kind of thing. And then, there's a little bit of a regional difference between the shows. The California shows, I think, are a little bit more, there's a lot of Rhacodactylus folks that you don't see at Daytona or Chicago. There's a lot of Rhacodactylus breeders. Chicago has a little bit more of a well-rounded thing. And Daytona, in my opinion, seems to be a little bit more of a almost purely snake show. So depending on who is, or turtles because of Wayne Hill. Because of Wayne Hill, for sure.
I'm excited. I mean, my first Tinley turned into, I'm not gonna say a nightmare. It was fine, but it was right when freaking COVID hit. I was supposed to go to Tinley in March. My plans were to go see them, and then as soon as I land, they're like shut down Tinley. Everything went to shit. It was just like, what the hell? And so it did turn out to be a good trip. I was able to pull some cool stuff out. But yeah, I didn't get to go to Tinley. Didn't get to check it out. Was really excited for it. I mean, I hope it. I mean, I don't know, with this COVID stuff, how much different do you think shows are going to be now?
I talked to Wayne Hill yesterday, and Wayne said, hey, I sell, I think I do 6 foot or 8 foot tables. So if you sit in the middle of your table, and the guy next to you is sitting in the middle of his table, he's 6 feet away.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I mean, I'm tape at the front of the booth and be like, 6 feet away.
Yeah, so you can't argue with Wayne's logic there. I mean, it certainly fits within the 6 feet social distancing requirements. But
He pulls it off.
he talked about, possibly selling tickets to the show that have a time frame on them. And they would only allow so many people in for a certain time frame to reduce the, because
Traffic.
at the opening of the show, there's massive crowds. You can barely walk through the crowds. That certainly would not be a safe environment with what we have going now. Tinley is in an even tighter space than Daytona is. There's really tight aisles in Tinley, and even there, the roof's not very tall. It's just not a very big space for all those people, sharing that same air. So it'll be curious to see what shows look like going forward and what the new normal becomes.
And if I can't remember what if you stated this, you have not set up at Pomona, right? You've never set up at the Pomona shows or anything like that?
No, I've been to the Pomona show a number of times. My staff has been there. We do our thing, but we have not set up tables and vended from the show.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now, with you moving to Arizona, could that change maybe?
Again, I want to make a bigger West Coast presence. Now, again, the West Coast, shows tend to be, I think everyone kind of drives there. They're not literally flying in from across the country, like, say, Tinley. It's not that type of industry event. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to do a giant display and, ship out 200, shipping boxes, because I'm not going to have that many people sending animals out. But again, I need to make a presence there. I need to, have people connect my face and, shaking my hand and all that with Ship Your Reptiles. And also tell them about all the things that we do, the packaging and the insurance and the custom rates and all that kind of stuff.
I would love to shake your hand.
What's up, my man?
Yeah. Man, that's amazing, man. Now, I do want to say, though, with you moving to Arizona, do you have any plans on like keeping more species of animals at some point? Do you ever feel like you're going to take it there again, like personally at your house?
I will never have. Never is a strong word, because most of the time you say that, that's exactly what happens to you. But I don't anticipate having 3,000 animals, breeder animals again. And we had 10 different incubators going for different species when we were pro exotics and all that stuff. That's hard to imagine me doing that on that level. But I will be in Arizona, which means I can keep things outside.
Yeah.
So some species that would work outside, I'm looking forward to that. Obviously, some more deserty Australian species would work great in that Arizona area. I do like some of the cool blue tongues that are happening right now, all the different color phases and stuff. I bred blue tongues in the 90s, bred them on a pretty good level. So I've certainly am familiar with that. I haven't bred them outside, so that'd be a cool new challenge. But yeah, so once I'm a little bit more full-time in Arizona, I anticipate doing some big outdoor cages and having some fun. and definitely going to have a nice herd of tortoises going.
I
And
love
you're going to keep your koi pond going too? You're going to keep your koi fish?
Oh, absolutely. We also have Ship Your Aquatics. So not just Ship Your
yeah, you
Reptiles, we
do.
also have Ship Your Aquatics.
Major.
So I service a lot of koi vendors, a lot of folks who do corals and coral frags. Within the clownfish world, there's a similar thing that's going on to say what we do with ball pythons. So a lot of mutant clownfish breeders out there. So I do all that stuff.
I love
do
that.
all the shipping for those guys. So I'm also pretty heavily in the aquatics hobby. So once I set up my outdoor reptile cages, a giant, 20, 30,000 gallon pond will be part of that system as well.
I have a dream. I have a dream of owning a sick ass koi fish pond, but I also had a dream of owning a major big saltwater tank, and I know that's really it's so hard. It's like the maintenance on a saltwater tank is no joke. Things could just die.
a fish guy. The fish guy comes over and he maintenances the tank.
But what I'm saying is keeping koi fish that hard as keeping like saltwater fish and stuff like that? I mean, is it
Not at all.
every day? No.
No, I've done reef tanks. I've kept saltwater fish. I've fragged coral in the past. Saltwater is definitely the trickiest one because of the water parameters, and particularly if you're going to do a reef tank, it's more than just the salinity level. It's the temperature, it's the pH, it's the alkalinity. I mean, it's the calcium levels. There's so many different things you're trying to keep track of. Koi are super hardy fish. I mean, they bred them in the rice paddies up until like the 1950s. But after that, they started actually developing a professional koi industry. But before that, they bred koi out in just rice paddies where they grew the rice. So they're a very hardy species. Koi can live a long, long time. They're not nearly as temperamental as some of those saltwater fish.
That's crazy. Now these koi fish get pretty big too, right? I mean, it varies on what kind of koi fish it is, right? I mean, there's is there species or localities or how's it work with koi fish? Because I know they're different prices. There's it gets crazy. It's a crazy hobby.
Think about the ball pythons, or maybe let's go leopard geckos, because there's a couple size variants within leopard geckos. The koi fish are the same way. So there's a couple of pattern mutations that are actually, genetically larger than others. But, there are koi that are probably, some of the prize koi are 30 to 40 inches. That's a big, really impressive fish once it gets 30 inches plus. I'm actually participating in a couple of koi auctions that will be done on Sunday. I'm trying to buy some 25-inch fish for my pond.
Damn.
Big boys.
Dude, that's crazy. What's the most expensive koi fish you own?
You can spend a couple grand on a koi fish, and that wouldn't be a baller fish. There's baller fish that go for 100,000 plus. There's koi fish that are sold for $1 million US. So
I gotta get into this.
Yeah, I mean, when we tell people what we spend on reptiles, they are always completely blown away by prices for ball pythons, or some of the abronia, or some of the Parsons chameleons, or some of that stuff. Yeah, you get to the koi hobby, it's pretty mind blowing as well. But there's other weirdos and other hobbies who are just like us. There's weird cactus people. There's weird orchid people. There's weird rose people.
There's mineral rock collectors.
There's mineral rock collectors. There's bigger fish that are thousands of dollars. There's guppies. So once I started this
tell them about your shoe collection problem. Jesus.
Yeah. I got a shoe problem.
She looks at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 shoe she bids on. She waits months to get it. It's crazy.
Out of control.
You doing like Jordans and Air Force Ones? You doing what kind of shoes?
No, I'm doing Nike Off-Whites, Yeezys.
Okay.
Yeah. I like Nike SB Dunks.
Okay.
I was thinking about maybe there's this new one out recently. I lost the draw today. There was a draw today for Nike, but I didn't win.
One of the coolest football experiences I had, and obviously you grow up, you watch professional athletes, and they get their own Nike shoe.
Yeah.
So to be able to go to Nike University and sit down with the designers and design my own shoe
Aw.
They put my name, or actually my initials, number. They had a little snake on the back.
Yeah, no
I
way.
gotta find this
That
shoe.
was
Can you get
one
it
of
for
the-
me?
Still
That
have
was
it?
one of the
Yeah.
coolest
still have it, right?
experiences I ever had.
I think
The
I
ones
see a
that had the
picture of it
snake embroidered on them, the league, the NFL banned those. You couldn't do that kind of stuff. So Nike wouldn't make me anymore, and I had given away all my first 5 or 6 pairs. So I myself don't have any of those copies of those shoes.
Who'd they go to? Get them back.
A couple of guys in the team, asked for some. Some of the equipment managers asked for some. I didn't ask for them back.
I'm gonna look online. I bet I can find it. That's
Dude.
crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Oh, man.
some custom sweet Nike cleats for Chad.
Dude, because think about it. I mean, that's so legendary, Chad, because not too many people have that kind of like, you know what I mean? Like you have
Yeah,
that,
was it
you
these
have that stamp basically right there. Yeah, let me see them. Put them up closer.
These are the cleats.
Yeah, those are some of them. Yeah, those were actually some ones that I designed
On the
when I was with the Steelers. But
Yeah.
the ones that I made were with the Seahawks. The Nike made from there, so they're either.
Type in Nike Seahawks, Chad Brown cleats.
Yep.
Wait, were these the ones they designed for you?
Blue. Let's
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Do better, Steven.
Oh, those are the black ones. But yeah, I did some. Yep. So those are the black ones with the patent leather. They did them in suede. They did them in
Nice.
regular leather. We did patent leather. We did blue. We did green. We did black and blue, blue and green.
Oh, I see the snake. Oh, wait, hold on. Is
I
this
want
it?
to find the one with this thing on it.
I don't think you're gonna find the one with the snake on them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because they didn't release them, you said, right?
No. They were just for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is crazy.
Well, I was just saying if you put it on here.
Man, that's awesome.
Oh,
Okay.
you like McRae Eye?
Huh?
You like McRae Eye? True
Yeah, I do.
monitors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on your Facebook right now.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta find your Facebook, bro. Hold on.
Oh, it's
Are
not
you
my.
on
no,
Instagram?
I am not. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's,
I couldn't find you anywhere. You're like low key.
I do Twitter. That's about it.
Twitter.
So you
I'm
had
on
some-
Twitter just for shoes.
Are you,
Just for all the shoe updates.
Chad, do you have TikTok?
No, I
Oh,
don't.
yeah, I do.
All right, guys. I got
Yeah.
about 10 minutes left.
Yeah,
You guys, any other reptile questions or anything?
I had a couple that they've been talking about shoes and TikTok. What was the story behind the desert ball python?
Okay, so I bought the Desert Ball Python collection from Stan Chiris. It was an African import that he got from Strictly Reptile. And the original male, was brightly colored and kind of strongly banded. Once he started crossing it into other morphs, that's when it really, showed its true potential. And I bought the collection from him. He wanted to focus on his retics and his gun dogs. So I bought the entire ball python collection from him. Flew out to middle of nowhere, Tennessee, rented a Ryder truck, took all the racks, took all the ball pythons, drove 22 hours from Tennessee back to Colorado, drove straight through. And for 2 years, we raised up all the female deserts that we could. And attempted to breed them. And the first deserts that Stan had sold as females, other people were starting to breed them, and that's when we started getting the reports that the females weren't able to breed. And I had never heard of such. I knew like the caramel albinos had the kinking in the in the backbones with the babies. So there were weird things with some either neurological issues, but never had I heard of anything where the females were just simply unable to produce. So the deserts were a little bit smaller than some of the other morphs. So I thought, well, why don't I just raise these up to really big sizes before I try to breed them?
Right.
So the year that we had the fire, I had probably 3 or 4 racks of desert females that were 2,000 to 2,500 grams plus that were gravid. They all passed during the fire. So I never actually produced or got any eggs from those females. I did get some slugs from females that Stan had raised. But I was at the time I thought, maybe it's because Stan raised these, and I'm trying to do them on a completely different system. Stan didn't use any heat or in his racks. He just had a concrete heated floor to heat his entire room. Maybe they weren't getting the specific heat they needed. So I came up with all these other hypotheses why this wouldn't work. So in the end, I clearly was able to produce good eggs from a female desert, nor was anybody else.
Yeah.
But that year we had the fire, that was my big attempt to try to prove or disprove the theory. I was able to get the females to grow. I was able to get them to grow to essentially normal size.
Yeah.
I was able to get them to breed. I ultrasounded them. I was able to look at the follicle growth. So I was tracking that process all the way through, but we had the fire right as a number of those females were coming into their pre-lay shed, so I never got a chance to see what was going on.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
But in the end, lots of very talented keepers had desert stock, and I think it's just clear at this point that there is something in the females that do not allow them to pass good eggs.
My last question regarding. Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, we touched on it very briefly, and I'm shocked that we didn't stay on the topic. Bolin's pythons.
Yeah.
Talk about those. So I'm assuming you got those from Cameron. Am I right?
So I got Bolin's pythons from Cameron. Raised them up, a number of them. There's probably some pictures of my stack of vision cages floating around on the internet someplace. So I would take vision cages and stack them up like 3 high and 2 rows. So instead of being a 6-foot cage, it was 12 feet wide and whatever it was 6 feet tall, and they were connected. All the cages were connected.
Wow.
So on the bottom, that was put on the concrete floor of my warehouse so they could get as cool as they wanted to get. That middle row had heat tape on it, so they could get in some heat tape. But in one cage, I literally put 8 inches of mulch, and I kept it super, super moist. And then on the top, I cut holes in the top of the vision cages where I could put light bulbs where they could bask. So they had a complete range of any temperature they wanted.
All levels. They were going up, right?
Yes, there were levels of the cages going up, and they were side to side, so they could go on the concrete floor. They could bask and be, under a spotlight that's 180 degrees. They could get whatever they wanted. We raised them up. We saw the same thing that everybody sees in Bolin's: courtship, copulation, follicular growth, and then that last part where those follicles go from 30 or 40 millimeters on the ultrasound to actually being, eggs. Never able to get that.
Yeah.
So
Any
common.
theories between you or anyone you've talked to? I know that there's a bunch of different things that people think about. What's like your opinion of what causes that lack of ovulation?
We tried so many different things over the years. We tried to make them really, thick and big and feed them a ton of rabbits. We tried to lean them out.
Yeah.
We thought maybe we're not getting them cool enough in the winter. So we, in the winter, we put them in our colubid room where they got down to 45 degrees, 40 degrees.
Yeah.
We had a warehouse in Colorado where we literally took a sledgehammer to the cinder block wall and just punched a hole in the wall and stuck a fan in the hole to blow as much cold air as we could possibly get into the room.
Hell yeah.
And the room was, getting to the low 40s, sometimes high 30s. So we tried everything possible, and I'm not sure what the secret actually is. I visited a buddy in Florida who produced a couple of clutches and had a couple of babies, hatch. And he said his trick was on every cold night in the winter, he would run from his house and go to his warehouse and open up all the windows. That was what he thought the secret was. More than just the cool air, it was the air pressure, the air changing and all that stuff.
Who knows? But who really knows? Gee.
I don't think anybody knows, because as much as he, would say, hey, I think it's the barometric pressure changing, you got very small clutches and you got 1 or 2 eggs to hatch from those clutches. So
Oh my God.
all that real success.
I would still die to just get one.
Okay. So of all the species that I've kept, and I've kept damn near every species of python, there is nothing that compares to a Bolin's python.
Oh, stop.
They
I'm
are
viewing it more and more now.
They are
the best, I think.
They are regal.
Oh,
They are majestic.
yeah.
They are
Next level.
smart. They are inquisitive. You know how when you have a really great relationship with a monitor lizard,
Yeah.
and you can tell he's
Yeah.
thinking and he's processing and he's completely calm and cool? Bolins are that way, where they'll rush to the glass, not because they're thinking it's going to be food, because they want to see you. They want to hang out. They want to check in with you. They want to take their nose and kind of go slowly down your arm and just kind of take it all in.
Get
So
one,
the-
Desiree. Get one.
I'm trying. I think Ari's got it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The amazing connection that you can have with a Bolin's python exceeds the connection that I had with any other species of snake. And any other, some monitor lizards, I had a pretty good connection with some of those, but that velvety sheen of a freshly shed Bolin's python, plus the inquisitive, gentle nature, in my opinion, it's one of the ultimate reptile pets. And in fact, I sent Cameron to Pedlin a text 2 days ago and said, next time you get Bolin's babies, I'm all in. So,
Nice. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would love to see you get back into those.
yeah, and then I need some of those Halomahera scrub babies.
Oh.
Yeah, he'll
there
we'll do a
goes
trade.
Steven.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry,
if I
We're
could-
getting
Barnett
Bolins. We'll do
scrubs.
that.
if I could breed Halmahera scrubs, and the world is not seeing those, but that's years down the road.
Steve will lock himself in a basement and never come out.
I bought the first babies that came in, and I
Okay.
was raising those up, and those passed in the fire.
Damn it!
So
Fuck
they
that
were
fire.
they were super thin, almost like a vine snake, really odd looking.
Yeah.
I had them about a year and a half before they passed in the fire, and they were just starting to put on a little bit of weight. They were tame. They were smart. They were
They're very
really
different.
pretty.
snakes.
Yeah, they're really badass snakes. So I was on that trip with Cameron and Dave Barker when they first brought those scrubs.
Stop.
Those scrubs.
Really, and we have 3 minutes left in the show. God damn it!
Jeez, right?
Round 2.
We'll bring
Yeah.
we'll bring
That is
round 2 for
amazing.
Chad for sure.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do round 2, part 2
Yeah.
with you guys, and we can dive a little bit more into.
I need to hear
Yeah,
that. I need to
I'm
hear that
trying to-
story.
How hard would it be to get Cameron on
I
here?
almost.
Cameron's a cool dude. I can certainly make the connect for you guys.
All right.
That would be
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, that'd be so
Love to do a
fucking
podcast
huge.
with him.
Hey, Chad,
God, Boris would have fucking shit himself.
this has been such an amazing opportunity to have you on the show, man, because it just really opened up my whole perspective on what kind of impact you've had on this hobby since you've come into the game, man. And it's so great to hear your passion. I could hear like the love you still have for any animal, not even animals you work with anymore, just the way where your heart's at with it, man. And it's a super, super inspiring. And I think we're all just super stoked about this episode. I think, this is probably one of my favorites. I think.
I feel like we've only scratched the
Just a
surface
yeah,
too. I feel like
just-
there's
this is
there's a whole
Yeah.
other side to this that we
Yeah.
haven't even touched on yet, and I would absolutely love to.
history.
Well,
Yeah.
let's do part 2, and let's focus on some of the animal stuff and the monitor stuff and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, really
yeah.
want to monitors too.
But
Yeah.
It's just your time with the Barkers.
oh, totally. We can get into all that now. MJ, to the last thing you said, the passion.
Yeah.
When I was a reptile breeder, sometimes the passion turned into jealousy because someone else was breeding something before I did it. Or, I was hoping to do that ball python combination first. But once I had the fire and I was no longer a competitive reptile breeder, it was great because then I could go to other people's facilities and I could just enjoy their animals without the jealousy or the I wish or oh man, dang. I could just enjoy the animals. So between that and the reptile report and highlighting other people's awesome successes, that's what keeps my passion going.
Amen, bro.
Awesome.
That's incredible.
Well, guys, Chad Brown, ladies and gentlemen, he just killed this episode. Episode
Oh, yeah.
3 in the books. Chad, we appreciate you so much, man. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Certainly fun. And then MJ, what kind of kush was that earlier?
It's actually it's concentrate. So I can't smoke actual flower anymore because how much I smoke. So I smoke this stuff called it's a Walter White strand. I think this is called here. I got a little bit left. It's pretty powerful stuff. But this is what it looks like here. This is actual marijuana, and it's this is called Walter White Apples Fritter, and it's actual hybrid. So it does the job, bro. It really does.
Right on, man. I'll talk to you guys next time. Looking forward to part 2. You guys have a good one.
All right, see you next time, Chad. See you, bro.
Bye, Chad.
Dude, that guy's so sick.
Damn. Why didn't we get into that Parker story? What the?
I know I got too much into the football questions, but listen, this is just a round 1. We're gonna.
Yeah, he already said to do it.
Down to come back on again. We need to, like I said, make sure we get these stories out next. I mean, Steven, I apologize. I should have been more on top of the Bolins topic when you mentioned it.
I heard him vaguely say it, like,
I'm
and
so
I was
glad
like,
you brought that up because like
As soon as I heard TikTok, I'm like, we're talking about reptiles.
It was a joke. It was a joke, and he was like, "Yeah, TikTok's fucking the devil." Even it didn't ruin this episode, but it got him to say, "Look, I got 10 more minutes."
I mean, I'm saying right here, next episode, I'll ask the first question and kind of see what
hey, if you want a good TikTok video, come outside right now.
Because I was throwing a chest freezer into our dumpster. That was fun.
With a forklift.
With a forklift.
Lord.
Check this out on TikTok.
So
like, he was on the expedition with Cameron Tappan.
What the fuck?
And Dave Barker
Are you
on
fucking
Halmahera.
kidding
They
me?
accidentally discovered the Halmahera.
Can you imagine how many other
than
adventures
Ed Marino?
we
Other than Ed Marino, this is the only other guest that had me like, holy shit, this guest is really on our fucking show. I'm glad we weren't live because I probably would have been even more nervous. But dude, good job, Desiree. This
my jersey.
I'm gonna have.
I love how you
I'm gonna get my dad's jersey.
your little football
Sure. That'd be so
thumbnail.
sick.
Like, he wants to talk about reptiles.
Still, man.
You guys didn't mention enough natural history.
Oh, jeez. Tell us more, Carl. You're just now coming in. I'm writing in
About
This conservation Carl
football.
hour.
What does football have to do with conserving native species?
What do you kick it around?
The mainstream media does not dictate how Carl feels.
How many people you've had to sign your petition so far?
I'm at 4 signatures.
How many addresses?
What? What did you say? I didn't hear you.
How many addresses? It doesn't count unless you get the address. Did you get 4
Oh
addresses?
yes, I got full support and commitment from all 4 of my signees. They're on board with Carl. They like my mission and my vision. I'm a visionary.
Maybe we should interview Carl.
Fuck. Hell.
Like a whole episode with Carl.
I would be your best guest. Ed Marino, who? He breeds an animal that's plentiful in the wild.
That'd be the less view.
What has Ed Marino done for conservation?
Oh my God, Carl, you better knock it off.
Carl, the fuck are you talking about?
You better knock it off, bro.
Is it Ed Marino, Carl?
This is happening now.
Steven,
I
what's
think
that?
he needs to sleep or something.
What's Carl talking about?
He's got this.
I mean,
double
Ed Marino has
personality.
basins. Carl has rough green snakes. Like, what's he? I guess I don't know. This is where his passion lays, man. It's why he's conservation Carl. I don't know what to tell you.
Fuck, bro, I need a drink after that.
Are we able
to listen to the show every week? If so, fuck Carl, man. Fuck that guy.
Are we able to floss that pic you sent me?
Yeah, I was hoping you were gonna
when
put it up when he was talking.
I just put 2 and 2 together. That's Chad Brown in the middle. But check this photo out. Okay, look at young Forrest, 2008, right?
Yeah.
Look at Cody.
He's so short. I think Forrest is taller than Chad because he was 6'6".
He's like a little buff.
Chad said he was 6'3". Cody's gonna be so mad about this. Stop, MJ.
Damn.
You can't even see their heads.
Oh, sorry, but dude, this is legend. Look at our boy. Over here.
Right, I know.
Oh my
He was so fucking happy
Oh
to
my God.
meet him that day. Like, I took the photo. That was at the hotel at the Daytona Expo. That was our first one because we all came from Nevada to go there.
That was when Daytona was cracking, huh?
Yeah,
Like,
that was
show,
my
right?
first reptile show. Yeah, I think it was my first ever reptile show.
Was that when you were working for Robbie at that time?
Not yet. That was 2 years before Robbie.
Wow.
Yeah, we were living in Las Vegas. That was right before I graduated my psychology degree.
Fuck, wild. Well, great
You should have gotten a biology degree.
Carl, fuck off.
Beat his ass, Steven. Get him out of here. We don't want him no more.
He's gone whenever I like look at like where the fuck like I can't ever see Carl. What's Carl look like? Like I can spot.
Was Carl driving the forklift earlier during that HR inappropriate?
I don't think he could have handled that.
What was going on?
I think
We're cleaning up the
Carl's
property.
against the use of propane, so
We're
like
doing clutter
Thank you.
control.
Nobody
Yeah.
nobody used the porta potty at the farm.
Okay, these dumbasses got the hose stuck under it. Did you guys fix that? Because you're gonna do that tonight. Just ridiculous.
I didn't do any. I wasn't really involved. I just filmed it.
You just filmed it, and you didn't notice that you got the hose stuck under.
No,
underneath
I just
it?
walked away and did other stuff.
Who's in charge? Who's in charge? Yeah, right.
I'm pissed about it. Can
That's
you not
it.
tell
Nothing
in my
good.
voice?
Fucking
They're all coming in tomorrow to work. Like it's a mandatory Saturday, or they're fired.
Ooh.
Yeah. And they're getting overtime. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to come here and help me if you're getting overtime? And I told them there's gonna be snacks, treats, and money. So you better show up. Or you're fired.
Well,
Just kidding.
Not really though.
I mean, I gave them the option.
And if you fuck up, you're fired. Even if you do it.
Yeah. I'm doing interviews.
zero room for mistakes at Cold Blooded Cafe right now. So definitely make sure you get your orders put in before they're low staffed and it's just desert ready. And
That's
hey,
fine.
you guys are any legit sales going on lately? What's going on?
When aren't there? It's
There's
Cold Blooded Cafe.
there's always some stuff.
When aren't we making deals? Moving mountains.
Moving mountains, making shit happen.
Red Seas.
And then also forget, man, if you have reptile eggs, they should be inside a sim box.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't use the same container, your eggs aren't going to hatch. It's essentially
That's
as cut and dry as it
exactly
gets.
what'll happen.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's like something we can't really say, but
We said
from anybody who's ever used a sim container who I've talked to, and I've used them as well, like before and after, you can't go back to not using a sim container. You know, they're the best product in the market for hatching eggs.
Ooh, once your sims, you're in. Wait, once your sim, you're in.
once your Sims, you'll never go back.
That was bad.
That does not rhyme.
Once you use a sim container, you'll never use another incubation media.
Carl.
Oh man.
That was a nice one, Carl.
I've actually used some containers. I had glass lizard eggs in them. I was reintroducing them.
Bye, Carl.
Hope everyone has a good night, man. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you're in for next week, okay? We have more bangers coming, that's for damn sure. And then also make sure give us a follow on YouTube and all
And
that.
follow at conservation_Carl.
That's not even real.
Bye, guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Night.
Okay, bye.
Later.
Carl comes out after the show, so when you stick around.